Chapter 3. The rest of the day passed in a blur. I had nearly fallen on a scorpion after scrambling up a sheer cliff just outside the town's limits. Millie had refused to climb with me, since she would have had to bunch up her skirt just to follow me up the rocky edge. The rock had been hot during the climb, with the sun high overhead and no clouds in sight. I had seen a metallic glinting from the road and wanted to climb up to see what it was. After climbing the sheer cliff face for about 15 feet, the rock had broken into a multitude of shallow cave entrances, which had been cleared over the years by sand and wind. One of them went deeper into the mountainside, and I couldn't see the other end in the darkness. Millie had been shouting from the ground, and I didn't want to leave her behind to continue exploring. I craned my neck to look upwards, higher still on the cliff face, but whatever I had seen from the road had been lost to view. I started scaling back down the wall, but reached too far one direction and lost my footing. Millie shrieked as I fell. The ground hit hard. The wind knocked out of me. I instinctively rolled to the side, away from Millie's shouts. Earning a couple bruises, but otherwise none the worse for the wear, my gaze fell on a huge bright red scorpion, sitting impassively not more than a foot from where I had landed. "I thought you were going to land on it," Millie exclaimed in a higher pitch than normal. We decided to call it a day and head home, and I glanced back at the peak I had just fallen from. Sure enough, there was a slight metallic glint way up the side of the peak. When we entered the back door, I heard Millie's mother, Marie, humming to herself softly while preparing a pie of some sort. She was rolling the dough out and sprinkling flour and sugar on the edges while crimping the pie crust with her other hand. I could see a bowl full of blueberries that she had picked freshly from the garden in the back of the inn. Marie had insisted on a small garden, and most of the extra water I had gone into that garden. I could smell clove and fresh mint mixed with mincemeat for one of the other pies Marie was baking. She made a shooing motion with her arms while pursing her lips in the hint of a frown at the mere suggestion of not following her directive. Millie and I were bustled into the common room, where guests had started to gather in anticipation of the coming meal. A fiddler had set up at one end of the room and was playing test notes, preparing for a song. A bright-eyed young woman stood near him and sang a few notes to accompany him. She had a wide smile and an easy care to her step. The fiddler was tall and skinny, his dark hair spilling over his shoulder in curls. He had a keen eye and quick fingers. I clapped in excitement for the music to come. The young woman brightened when her eyes fell on Millie and me, and she shot us a cheerful, knowing smile before turning back to the fiddler. A couple townsfolk started to spill through the doors, setting down their sacks and wiping off their brows before settling down to one of the long tables. Almost everyone knew everyone here, in a town this small. Roden, the town's carpenter and cabinet maker, exchanged pleasant greetings with Mrs. Suston, the mayor's wife. Arlene Hemingworth, who was more of a jack-of-all-trades fix-it man, sauntered over to another table with Mel and Hamlin, men who worked at the town mill. They looked up briefly before returning their gaze to their mugs of smoky red ale. Passing my gaze over the room, I suddenly realized the traveler was sitting alone at a far table, with the brim of his hat turned down so that it hid most of his face and eyes. He had one foot propped up on the table and was quietly chewing a long stem of wheat. For a moment he reminded me again of the traveler that had passed through so many years ago with his group of performers. But no, this was just a man. I tugged Millie's sleeve and whispered conspiratorially to her in a low voice, "There he is. Should we go over and speak to him?" Millie affected a bored look. "What do you find so interesting about him anyway? He looks like just another country bumpkin. He's probably boring." Puffing my chest out, I strode forward to meet the man. After all, there was a small chance that he could be an emissary from one of the distant cities. My heart leaped at the thought. I took several breaths to steady myself. Then I approached. Excuse me, sir. My name is Eddie." I waited for a moment, but received no reply. "Are you a traveler from distant lands?" I blurted out, too excited to contain it further. He laughed. I had wondered when someone would build up the nerve to approach me. One arm rested casually on his stomach. The other he used to tip the brim of his hat just enough to meet my eyes. I was not prepared for what I saw. Where one eye should have been, gleamed a giant opal of deep turquoise and sea green. The other eye, a deep jet black, swiveled to meet mine, then darted about the room for onlookers. Apparently satisfied, he continued. What do you want of me, boy? I'm just passing through, and would just as soon be forgotten upon my departure on the morrow. I stumbled. I hadn't prepared for such a sour greeting. In all of my dreams, I had been met with as much excitement as I exuded upon going on a grand journey to see the world. I, was hoping you'd be going on a grand journey, and that you might tell me of the great sights you have seen. I was starting to regain some of my former excitement. You're one of those daft young lads that want to go off on an adventure, am I right? Ha ha! Oh, it's great to see a live one in the flesh. Suddenly his mood darkened. No, lad, I am not what you are seeking. With that, he abruptly turned and got up from the table. I was left dumbfounded as I saw him make his way over to the fiddler and singer. He almost absent-mindedly turned his gaze towards the woman, and she stepped away, shooting a glare at his back. It only lasted a moment. When the singer turned again, I could see her bright smile toward the crowd of regulars, and she started a low hum of Wheelbarrows a Mendin', a popular song among the locals. It had a bawdy bit at the end of the song about a mayor's wife and a pig. In short, the crowd loved it. I was left standing there with the bitter taste of disappointment in my mouth. Wordlessly, I turned and headed back toward the kitchens. Marie, the innkeeper's wife, was busy directing the other cooks for the evening meal. There were the makings of an apple tart that reminded me of my hunger. Instead, I pushed the back door open into the hot, dry air. Off to my right, flowers were bursting into bright yellows and blues in Marie's garden. The garden had been recently watered, and I could see the dark soil which was in stark contrast to the cracked, mud-caked earth all around it. It was an oasis in the middle of a vast and unforgiving desert landscape that surrounded us for hundreds of miles. No man or woman could leave this town without careful provisioning and planning. 2 years ago, there had been another well the town had used for drinking water, but had turned brackish and now could only be used for cleaning. Soon we predicted the well would dry up entirely. My gaze drifted off along the skyline before me. It was a deep azure blue, without end. A tiny line of wispy white clouds remained from the last storm. Soon they too would burn off completely. My life felt like it had been on hold for a long time. I had put too much hope into this traveler, who would be leaving just as uneventfully as he had appeared. A slow intake of breath behind me alerted me to Millie's presence. Have you ever realized you just stand there sometimes for minutes at a time? What are you thinking about in that head of yours? I thought you were excited about the traveler. Millie sat with her dress folded beneath her on a large rock that rested near the wall of the inn. Her gaze spoke volumes. I did want to see him, Millie, but it seems like it was a waste of time. Damn it. But I thought he would be someone exciting. I thought, well, it doesn't really matter anymore. Millie looked serious and thoughtful, then relaxed her features as she gazed back at me. Under her breath, she finished the thought. Eddie, you make me happy. Unable to make out what she was saying, I turned back to the skyline. A small lizard poked around a rock 50 paces ahead of us, then slithered off again. I could see the air shimmering off the ground from the heat. Mopping my brow, I blew out the breath I had been holding, and joined Millie over in the shade of the building. Make some room for me, please, I entreated to her. She elbowed me in the ribs before scuttling to the edge of the rock. You big oaf. Together we pressed our backs to the building and let the heat wash over us. Hi everyone. If you've been enjoying my content and you'd like to support my channel, you can do so at patreon.com/authorsprocess. And it would mean a great deal to me to be able to keep bringing you great content and sharing it with you on multiple platforms. Here is the page that you will see if you choose to support me. And on this page, you will be able to choose what membership level you could support at. Again, only if you choose to. But we have the initial level dedicated to the arts, and then lover of the arts, patron of the arts, and grand patron of the arts. So what you will receive is early access to my content, and then at the higher levels, your name will be listed at the end of each of my videos in a special thanks section. So again, please consider it. It would mean a great deal to me. And thank you so much again. Even if you're unable to support monetarily, just viewing my content is great support as well. So thank you so much for being here, and I appreciate you.